Good rising, brethren. This is Big Judah coming to you guys from California. Before I begin, give all praises to the Most High Yahweh. Acknowledgement to the earthly mother. Who is wisdom? Who is the Holy Spirit? Acknowledge Yahweh Shai. I pray the Most High blesses this lesson this evening, gives more knowledge and understanding of the events of the past in order to understand events that are currently happening on the earth. So we get a much better understanding of the things that are soon to come on the earth. Brother, we get into some pretty much some great information that's going to bring a lot of the events of the past, present, and future to a head in order to give a much deeper understanding of all these different things that the Most High has given us over these last few months. We're going to understand why these Gentiles have been doing what they're doing and what it is that they've been trying to hide. See, I've always been kind of thinking, especially lately, what is it that's so special about the lands over there like Britain and Ireland? Well, we're going to get into that right now. These ley lines and what the Most High has made these Gentiles do. They've pretty much, all they've been doing is just holding on to our stuff, holding on to our landlines, building on top of it. While we were asleep, we wouldn't understand what was going on. But then when we awaken, we realize that all they've done is just been placeholders. All they've done is just kept our seat warm. And that when the Most High wakes us up, we're getting everything back. The Gentiles have been complicit and working together to keep our minds on little things, like the little strip of land over there in the so-called Middle East. The fact of just our identity, and like that's enough. Just knowing who we are is enough. When we're way more complicated and have way more depth than just that. We're going to talk about the covenant. They've taken all of our blessings and applied them to themselves. They've taken our blessings and applied it to themselves. But they've said they don't want the curses, though. And we're going to get into this right now. First, we're going to talk about, they're very proud. And we're going to get into a lot of things that, like historical things, biblical things, to show you a little something right now. I love this book because what it does is it allows Esau to tell the truth. It allows the other nations to tell the truth without really telling the truth. They've made it so that the whole world thinks that they are the Israelites, or they've taken the place of the true Israelites. And this book has really allowed them to really express how proud they are of being the Most High's chosen people, and how, their accomplishments have been ordained by God. So let's let them just tell on themselves right now. Marks and signs of the woman's seed. The seed of the woman has left signs and footprints along the pathway of history. Having already identified the seed of the woman in Scripture as Israel, we need to investigate their signs and symbols. Unless we can properly identify biblical Israel on the world stage, there will be no change in the course of our civilization. And that's true. As long as they don't realize who the real Israel is, there is not going to be a change, of course, in our civilization. So as long as everyone believes that either Christians have supplanted the Israelites or Ish over there are the Israelites, as long as you believe that, your course in civilization will not change. But see, right now the Most High has changed the courses. Before, belief in those kinds of things gave you the blessings. Now belief in Christianity and Ish over there is going to bring you the curses. And that's where so many people are not understanding. You've hitched your wagon to the wrong horse over here. You've hitched your wagon to the losing horse. And that's why you're praying. You're still doing the same things you did before. But what did it say right here? If you continue the same things, you will not be able to change. There will not be a change in the course of your civilization. Now let's continue. The unconditional promises which God made with Abraham were to be fulfilled in the national destiny of a people called Israel. These promises were national, and there is no scriptural authority whatever to transferring them to the Ish people. See, they already have a problem with Europeans and Ish already, okay? And we already understand that, okay? For they have never brought blessings to the world. The true Israelites, in contrast, have been a blessing to all nations. This is huge right here. This is how they are talking about how true Israel is going to be a blessing to all nations. Now, this is what they've been trying to hide the whole time. This is why they've been doing the Psalms 83. They've all been working together against our people because they've pretty much taken over our lands, built up their navy, built up their military might off of our lands using the ley lines. And then they show themselves as going around, okay, and being a blessing to all nations by pretty much having that white man's burden. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And with that white man's burden, they felt that was their necessity, or was a necessity for them to be able to go all over the world, bringing Christianity and civilization. That's how they turned this whole thing around. Now, they've been portraying themselves as the only ones that have been a blessing to the world. And that's why they are the true Israelites, according to them. Now, we're going to get into a lot of stuff right now, okay? This is just the beginning. But I want you to get their belief and their understanding. And now you're going to see why our history has been diminished or hidden, swept under the rug. Because they are portraying themselves as the Israelites, because they're the ones that have gone all over the world, bringing blessings to the world. And you know how their blessings go. Christianity at the point of a sword, rape, robbery, murder, exploiting resources for their own gain. That's been the white man's burden. That's what he's been giving to the whole world. So that's how he said about his blessings. Okay, let's continue. The Israelites of Scripture can be identified today among that group of people who now fulfill every requirement of the Abrahamic covenant. As you will see, this group of people is found among the Anglo-Saxon, Germanic, Scandinavian people of the Western world. It's like I told you, as long as everybody thinks it's them, they'll tell you the truth. The recipients of the divine blessings and the heirs of the covenant. They are the executors of the commissions, the inheritors of the character of the charters, the possessors of the biblical guarantees, and the seed upon whom the blessing of God have fallen. These people are the subjects of biblical history and the focus of the prophets. They are the people upon whom the eyes of God and his word have shined. All right, so he's just giving you his whole breakdown about how these Anglo-Saxons are the Most High's chosen people. It says, when these unconditional promises were given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Jewish people were not even in existence as a nation. And neither were you Anglo-Saxons. There was no Anglo-Saxon countries or people during the time of Yahushua, or even before during Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So these people were not around either during the time of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay? Without understanding who true Israel is in the Holy Bible, you will never understand Scripture, and the Bible forever will remain a sealed book. The Bible is very much like a family history book. Its primary people are the Israelites. It names and mentions many other people, but only as they came in contact with Israel. If you are writing a family history of your people, you might refer to other people in the narrative, but your book would chronicle the history of your own people or of your own family and no other. Such is the Bible. It is a book about the history of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Israel. Every book contained in the Bible is authored by an Israelite. If we fail to identify the Israelites of the Bible, we shall have missed the greatest discovery of this age. Now, like I said, as long as they think it's them, they're cool. And that's what all of history has been shaped to continue the lie. All of history has been shaped to actually continue the lie of the Anglo-Saxons being the Israelites. All history acts like it began with the Anglo-Saxon people being in power. You see very little is talked about of what was there before the Anglo-Saxons were lifted up. But just like I remember the video I did, and you guys want to go back and look at it if you haven't seen it, the one talking about King Arthur, and how at the beginning of the movie, they tell you that the story of King Arthur was actually a myth of another group of people that was there before the Anglo-Saxons got there, and that they romanticized it, and they romanticized everything. Okay, so now that we got this, let's continue. Remember now, everything's about the white man's burden, Anglo-Saxons, they're the Israelites, they're God's chosen people, and then they had to make history and write history to continue the lie. Okay, I got a video I want you guys to watch a little bit of right here, talking about the Anglo-Saxon, the British, and a little bit of their history. But remember the ley lines. Remember when they came into power, all of a sudden they had an awesome navy. So that would make you think then, who would have an awesome navy before the Anglo-Saxons came there? Who were the people that were there before? If those ley lines and that power is in that area, who was there before? Let's check out a little bit of this video here.
Absolutely. Tony Ben, this is all part of a new Disneyland of sorts. We're just repackaging history in Disneyland, but in fact, there isn't much to it. Well,
all right, let's try this again. I'm trying to get this to play from the beginning.
It was quite special. And how it was once the empire on which the sun never set.
My government will fully support our courageous armed forces.
And Britain still sees itself as a great world power.
I love this country. I think its best days still lie ahead.
But the sun always sets. Battered, bruised and bankrupt.
I'm afraid to tell you there's no money left.
And struggling to cling to American coattails. We're the Brits. How great is Great Britain today? How special is its special relationship?
Very special.
And how united is the United Kingdom? This is Empire. Hello and welcome to Empire. I am Marwan Bishara here at Greenwich in London, the spiritual home of the British Empire and the official center of the world.
The official center of the world.
Britain had not only ruled the seas, but divided the world in two. This line, the official meridian line, separates the world east from west. And so from Greenwich, Britain had not only set the global agenda, but global time itself. Fast forward to the 24th century, and global power shifts west, then east. And here in Britain, inexperienced leaders take over the reins of power. The empire is long gone. All is left are echoes and attitudes of past era. This is how Britain sees itself. The benign bringer of justice and civilization to a grateful world.
It's very much part of British culture and psychology. You only have to scratch us to get an imperial kind of response.
Imperialism has an afterlife. We can't discuss the global economy today without looking back to the history of empire, because that is really where it all begins.
Over 500 years, the British Empire spread out from its first and ad hoc colonies of North America and the West Indies to Africa, Asia, the Antipodes, and the Far East, to cover 2/5 of the globe and rule 450 million people. But unlike any other power before it, Britain saw itself as a moral empire.
This idea is really that notions such as fair play.
You see how they said like no other nation and no other power was like that before it. That's what they've been trying to push this whole time, that there was no other nation that wielded that kind of power before the Anglo-Saxons showed up in Britain. That's that's one huge part of the lie that they've been pushing this whole time. Let's continue.
The West Indies to Africa, Asia, the Antipodes, and the Far East, to cover 2/5 of the globe and rule 450 million people. But unlike any other power before it, Britain saw itself as a moral empire.
This idea is really that notions such as fair play, justice, freedom, democracy are fundamentally British values which need to be universalized. And the white man's burden is to take these values to other parts of the globe and bestow them on other peoples.
But behind this utopian self-image, the British Empire was actually built on the profits of the international slave trade and the use of overwhelming naval power to enforce a Pax Britannica across the globe.
Many of the practices within the supposedly free market economy of the empire were designed very much to favour the big British players in the metropolis and to benefit the motherland in various direct and indirect ways.
India was the jewel in the empire's crown. The subcontinent was both a powerhouse of Britain's economic dominance and the poster child for a benevolent imperial rule. But while India's material riches were shipped to English ports, millions of its people starved.
What you do have in India in the colonial period is several famines, which are a result not of natural causes, but of colonial mismanagement.
And despite Britain's self-anointed status as a global moral champion, it made and broke 66 separate promises to leave Egypt, the hub of its empire in the Middle East, and laid the foundations for decades of war in Palestine by simultaneously promising it to 3 completely incompatible nations. Its First World War ally, France.
Okay, we'll stop right there. So as you can see, they made it seem as if they were the first. There was no other nation like them. They were the first, to be able to go out and conquer all these places. And it was their burden, their white man's burden, to be able to bring that civilization that they feel, that is so much better than everyone else's, and make it universal, and everyone else has to take it. This was all part of the ploy. And you're talking about that meridian line right there, and how, that was like their spiritual center. See, that all comes from the Most High's people. All they do is copy. As you look at them now, they make bootleg copies of everything. So they were like, when they took over the lands, they quickly wanted to take our churches out. They want to take our homes out, and they want to rebuild everything for themselves. And while they were doing that, they were also getting the power of the ley lines. Now we understand what these churches have been doing. They build their churches on our ley lines. They bring up good times Jesus, how he loves everyone, how the whole world is cursed. And that, as we go to these churches, we pray so that Most High lifts a curse off of all of us. See, that's how they got us tricked into believing and praying for them. Believing in their white Jesus and praying for them. They know the Most High is not listening to them, but they do know the Father listens to us. So we're in our churches praying for our enemies, praying for us all to be able to be one, praying for a society that was never to come. And now that the Most High is lifting the curses off of us and putting the curses on them, now, they're still saying the same things. Go to church, pray to Jesus. Jesus took it all for us, so we don't have to pay for anything. That's why it was so important for them to build their churches on our ley lines and get the power. We had the power from our prayers, and we still had some power, and the Most High was was blessing the other nations. Now they're scared because now they're seeing that the whole setup that they have is now falling apart, and now they're being exposed. And as you can see, there's no backup plan. But that Navy is huge. That Navy is absolutely huge. Hold on here. Okay. And they built a lot of them on this Chatham dockyard. I'm going to read a little bit of it. It's on Google. You can look it up. And then if you guys want more information, of course, you guys know you can do some more research on that. But let me get it again. So just sharing a little something real fast. The Chatham Dockyard was a Royal Navy dockyard located on the River Medway in Kent. Established in Chatham in the mid-16th century, the dockyard subsequently expanded into neighboring Gillingham at its most extensive in the early 20th century. 2/3 of the dockyard lay in Gillingham, 1/3 in Chatham. Now you can sit here and look, this is where all the lines are. This is where they got their power from. Their Navy was the best in the world. That's all, I'm sure, part of the blessings of those lands. Being able to pump out these huge ships, being able to go into the waters and destroy other people and take over. That was all part of the blessings. Now, it's really important for them to make it seem as if they were the first and only nation to do this, which is an absolute lie. This is part of the blessings that the Most High had given to whoever he decides to give it to. Our people first, then eventually our enemies. But see, what they've done is they made it a point to make it seem as if the blessings were never on our people, that our people were never worldwide rulers. That's something they've been hiding this entire time. Not only were we worldwide rulers, the people wanted us to rule them. The people wanted us to be on top because they knew when the true Israelites are on top, the world is in harmony. And we'll talk about that shortly. And that's something that they wanted to hide. See, they're on top. The wicked are on top now. And look at the world now. That's what they've been hiding. And we're going to get into that right now. See, this blessing is not, this is why they have us thinking so small. Thinking about just that little itty-bitty strip of land over there in Israel. And they had the Balfour Declaration. These people were already on top. They were the ones on top. They're trying to pretty much get people not to look at them as being the culprits for stealing our identity, our resources, our history, everything. So that's why they set that little land in the 1940s. to pretty much keep us from looking at them. Take a look at this Deuteronomy 28 and 1. Let me show you how these blessings are, how they work. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. So these blessings make it so that whoever has them is going to be on top of the entire earth. Now, when was we were given these blessings? We were under the blessings. But see, history hides the fact that we were ruling the entire earth. That's where that Psalms 33, them all coming together to take away that information. Let's get it real quick. This is a worldwide takeover. Psalms 83 and 1. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together, and with one consent, they are confederate against thee. So when we were up on top, this was not just a little itty bitty area of that we were on top of. We were on top of the whole world. And in order to hide that, the whole world had to become confederate to hide this information. So these blessings were worldwide, and they'll be worldwide once again. Proverbs 29 and 2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. The wicked are in rule right now. And look at how the people are mourning now. They're going to mourn even more when they realize the truth. But right now, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. Well, when was the righteous in authority? See, that's the history that they've hidden. That's the history they don't want you to know. That you were happy, Gentiles, when the righteous were in authority. You were happy to cleave to the Most High's chosen people, because you know that when that happens, the people will rejoice. The world will be renewed, just like it says in Joel 2. The Most High's people will rule based off of the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High, the way this world was supposed to be used. And see, that's what the enemy doesn't want you to remember or figure out. That this switch doesn't have to be a horrible thing. It's in fact, it's switching from the wicked being in rule to the righteous, from the earth being in shambles to the earth being rejuvenated. That's what they've been trying to hide. It's like, hey, you get your eyes open, Gentiles, Hebrews, and you look at that beautiful oasis. You look at that beautiful earth. You look at how beautiful it could be. It's on the other side of the fence. But then you look at what the wicked have made, and it's just absolutely horrible. Pollution, death, destruction. But see, the other nations, I said, don't want you to look over here on the other side of the fence where things are beautiful and things are in order. They don't want you looking over here. So they have you doing everything to fight to keep their system alive. They've admitted that the plague has thrown a monkey wrench into their lives, and that the only way that you can get your normal back is by taking this vaccine. Who wants to go back to the way things were before? A rat race, all about money, all about me, nothing about the Most High, which then eventually, ruins the earth, ruins the water, ruins the air, kills all the animals. That's the normal that they're trying to get you to go back to, because they're trying to show you that you don't have any other options. That it's only them because they've been the only ones that have gone around the world. So therefore, you have to stick with their society. Now the Most High is raising up his people. And we're showing you that things used to be like this before. This is how things used to be before, when the righteous are in rule. This is if the Most High is calling you. This is what you need to be cleaving onto. This is what you need to be working to actually get to. Not staying in the same old rat race that there was before. So see, they have pretty much hidden the fact that the righteous were in authority and that the people were rejoicing. That's why, they only give you a Bible and tell you that all happened in one little itty bitty area. This is worldwide. And this is what the Most High is moving back to, the righteous being in rule, and then the people will rejoice. Now we're going to talk real quick, because Enoch ruled the world. Enoch was put in a position to rule the world. Okay? It says, Jasher 3:9, and all the kings of the sons of men, both first and last, together with their princes and judges, came to Enoch when they heard of his wisdom, and they bowed down to him. And they also required of Enoch to reign over them, to which he consented. So again, and all the kings of the sons of men, both first and last, together with their princes and judges, came to Enoch when they heard of his wisdom, and they bowed down to him. And they also required of Enoch to reign over them, to which he consented. And they assembled in all 130 kings and princes, and they made Enoch king over them. And they were all under his power and command. So Enoch was a man of wisdom. The whole world, all of the kings of the world came and wanted him to rule over them. Why is that? Let's go. Proverbs 29:2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people mourn. That's exactly what happened right here with Enoch. He had wisdom above all others. The people wanted to be able to rejoice and enjoy their lives and do the right thing. So they went to Enoch and asked him to rule over them. But see, the Anglo-Saxons and the Gentiles want to hide all that information. And that's exactly what they've done. Let's take a look here real fast at the London's ley lines. And remember, everything has been here. Nothing's new. Only thing that's different is that the Edomites, the Gentiles, the heathens, they all got their chance to run the world. And they just ran it straight into the ground. The knowledge of the ancients is a living and evolving tradition, and that's us, the ancients, okay? Buried and encoded within the landscape to be accessed by future generations who understand the nature of the mysteries. And that's what they did, and that's what we're going to do again. There are many patterns and plans overlaid, one upon the other within the layout of London's sacred sites and lays. Some are natural, some laid down in Wren's rebuilding of the city, some dating back to Roman, Saxon, or Norman eras, some to the time of the Druids, some a natural matrix inherent to the Earth's quintessential structure. In some instances, the creation of these alignments and the geomantic plans were clearly part of the process of taking over the control and rule of the country through its ancient power centers by invading cultures like the Romans and the Normans. All they did was come in and take over our stuff because it was their turn. That was it. For others, it was sacred work in which the alignments and the patterns they form were acknowledged as a circuit diagram, which carries an inherent spiritual power and beneficial influence to the landscape, and its populace. It's clear, though, that an understanding of these matters has passed down the centuries as hidden knowledge. So much of this information was hidden. They didn't want people to realize that they were getting knowledge and understanding from an ancient people, because then maybe they would start asking, who were these ancient people? And then the gig would be up, right? When you look at the geometric gardens, grand avenues, and alignments created by people like Inigo Jones, a prominent Mason, around the stately homes and palaces of the ruling elite as recently as the 18th century, it is obvious that something akin to Western feng shui was being employed. So they're building all these things on the ley lines. We know that. In that era, it was probably inspired by the Renaissance and the Vitruvian reestablishment of the principles of sacred geometry. Other examples are clearly of greater antiquity. And see, that's what these things are way before when the Romans and all the Indo-Europeans got there. But they had to hide that, because if there was another group of people that was there, then you should be looking for a group of people that had a strong navy, who was going worldwide, who was ruling worldwide. But see, with us, it didn't have to be forced. The people wanted us to rule because they knew that we would rule justly. Just like they're about to learn again right now. That us being on top is the way the Most High wants it. That's the way He set it up. And that's the way that this world is going to be in harmony with the people and the animals and the air and the water once again. Says my previous books, see some right there, demonstrates that some of London's most ancient sacred sites were laid out to a precise geometric plan, corresponding directly to the design upon which the megaliths of Stonehenge were built more than 3,000 years ago. Again, has nothing to do with the people that are there now. Has nothing to do with the Europeans that are there now. Clearly, the priesthood of the megalithic era understood the principles of sacred geometry and its connection to the planetary universal life force better than we do today. When that's because we are the people. We are the Most High's chosen people. And we're the ones that were given this information. Even though they're trying to make it seem as if their nation that's there now has been the only nation that's been able to do the things that they've done, which is an absolute lie. This knowledge has always been part of the perennial wisdom upon which many civilizations, cities, and cultures have been built throughout the ages. Beneath our city streets, the grand plan of a past golden age is still discernible in parts through the many laid alignments and their mark points, which can still be traced within the modern landscape and its monstrous carbuncles of architectural ignorance. So right there, it's telling you right there that this knowledge has always been part of the perennial wisdom upon which many civilizations, cities, and cultures have been built throughout the ages. So them trying to make it seem as if they're the only people that have done any of this is an absolute lie. But this is why the books and the information the Most High has given us recently has now opened up so much understanding. The Black Celts, the Four Masters, all these books about the ley lines, all showing you that there was a people that was there before. So England saying that no one's ever had a society like us is an absolute lie. There was one before you, and there's about to be another one after you. Except the one that's coming after you, that one's forever. Yours was only temporary. Most High gave you the keys to the car, and you totaled it. Ran into a tree. And now the Most High is taking the keys back from you and giving it back to the rightful owners. Secret Voyages. This is a great book. You guys want to get? It's got a lot of great information. And we're going to talk about Solomon. Now, we talked about Enoch having great understanding. Solomon was given great understanding as well. So then would it not make sense then that the other nations would do what? Want to follow him. He's also rumored to have a what? A great navy that was going around all over the place. They talk about it just a very little bit in the Bible. That's why you got to go to other sources. They only give you a little bit of information. I was watching a video yesterday talking about Solomon having flying ships, like a History Channel. But see, anything that shows them being outside of their little area, they don't want you to know about. They don't want you to discuss, and they don't want you to research. Now, I'm convinced that Solomon had ships going to the New World, Ophir. In this book, it talks about how there's like 3 different great mining areas. I'll probably do separate videos on that. This bit is already going to be long enough. But we'll hit that one up even more in a little bit. Among Solomon's closest friends was the Phoenician ruler King Hiram of Tyre. Hiram governed an ancient metropolis and seaport that was located along the Mediterranean coast of Lebanon. He also had connections with Phoenician merchants sailing throughout the world. Ever since the worldwide decline in the demand for copper, the Phoenician merchants sought to develop new products for overseas commerce. Chief among these new commodities were red and purple dyes, gemstone, lapis lazuli, turquoise, Mediterranean amber, textiles, and gold. The sources of all these materials were regarded as commercial secrets. That's the thing. You don't want to share your secrets or where you're getting the stuff from. You want to be able to, corner the market. The sources of all these materials were regarded as commercial secrets. Indeed, they had to be kept secret from commercial rivals, since the livelihood of the Phoenician maritime nation was wholly dependent upon their monopoly over the transport of valuable commodities. The Phoenicians were also master shipbuilders, sailors, and navigators. These skills had been developed as a result of air experimentation and, more importantly, from the inspiration of foreign inventors, with whom they had ongoing contact. Early on, they learned the secrets of primitive telescopes or spyglasses, and they learned how to use the magnetic compass. This device consisted of a magnetized steel needle that was coated with grease or wax and floated in a brass cup. As Solomon was so busy with his many international affairs, his 12 governments, and his many wives, it was essential for him to give someone else the responsibility for mounting expeditions to the land of gold. King Hiram was glad to oblige his enchanting son-in-law. He expected to gain handsome profits by managing the mining and transportation arrangements for Solomon's gold. The first issue for the new partnership was selecting a suitable name for the distant isle. They settled on the land of Ophir, which was a name they chose to honor the grandson of Noah. Hiram selected the port of Ezion Geber and the Red Sea as the base for building his new treasure fleet. The vessels were over 100 feet in length. They were made in the Phoenician style with a keel, ribs, a skin of overlapping cedar planks. Okay, we can skip on down. Okay, let's go ahead and down to the next paragraph. The treasure fleet seldom sailed with fewer than 10 ships. Hiram figured that they needed at least this many vessels in order to guarantee protection against pirate attack. They also needed adequate space for extra trading goods that were transported on each expedition. They sailed many times. Accounts in the Bible record a few of the expeditions. They headed first to a far eastern port that is only identified as Tarshish. It was another secret city with Hiram's vessels sailing from Ezion Geber. Had a rendezvous with a second fleet from Ophir, Tarshish. Okay? Tarshish was a midway point in the transoceanic trek of treasure from the New World to the Middle East. By splitting up the sailing routes and the duties of the sailors, Hiram hoped to protect his secret sources. And so that would make sense as they're trying to hide this information. And even in the Bible, they only give you a little bit of the information. These people are going back and forth 3.5 years. You hear about it once or twice, and then that's really much all you hear. They're not trying to give out their secrets, not trying to give out how they're getting back and forth. It says, we learn from the Bible that it was Tarshish where the vessels from Ezion Geber obtained cargoes of sandalwood, spices, elephants, apes, and peacocks, in addition to the gold from Ophir. This assortment of goods and animals suggests that the mysterious port was situated someplace in Thailand, Burma, or Indonesia. The 13th century traveler Marco Polo was among those who searched for the location of Tarshish in this region. He concluded that Hiram's transfer point was located along the coast of Java. Every 3 years, Hiram sent his fleet to Java to get the gold of Ophir. The Phoenician trade route was in effect a virtual pipeline of valuable metal that was sucked right out from the King Solomon's mines and sent it on its way to Hiram's clan in Lebanon. This flow of New World treasure fueled Phoenician mercantile enterprises throughout the Mediterranean region. A small portion of the gold ultimately found its way to Solomon's temple. The Bible reports that Solomon obtained 400 talents of Ophir gold, estimated to be over a ton of pure gold ingots. So I'm going to leave this here for you guys to check out on your own right here. A couple of these, you can read them and check them on your own. But the point is that there is proof that as Solomon was ruling the world, not just his little itty bitty section that they've been pushing this whole time. This would make sense. This would make sense. 3.5 year, sailing, going to pick up gold and coming back, having a huge empire like that, just like the English did, and want to make it seem like no one else did. We got Enoch, who was also ruling the world at this time. So I'm sure there's more information than they're letting out and have given us. And this is what the Most High is moving back to, giving knowledge, giving the actual scepter, okay, back to the Israelites. Raising his people to be back on top. So no, England was not the first place or the only nation like this, even though that's what they've been pushing this whole time. This part I think I did want to read a little bit about. Down towards the middle. Well, you can read the top on your. Well, let's see. Modern historians are totally baffled by the whereabouts of the biblical mines of Solomon. On the other hand, Practically all the Orthodox historians insist that neither Solomon nor any other Jew could possibly have sailed to the New World ahead of the official 15th century hero Columbus. You see that? Only they have to be first. No one else has done it. And when you believe that, that is why you got to fix everything to fit into your own little paradigm. Thus, the New World is the last place on earth where they would ever look for the lost mines. Most don't even bother to look beyond a few marginal sites in Africa and Asia. Any clues to the contrary are ignored, leaving half the earth, as well as all the dogmatic intellectuals, totally in the dark. This prevalent attitude in academia is totally repudiated by the preponderance of the evidence. So the evidence says one thing, but the Indo-Europeans, they say otherwise. After the Spanish conquistador under Francisco Pizarro invaded Peru in the 1530s, the Spanish historian Joseph de Acosta was convinced that the Spaniards had come upon the lost site of King Solomon's mines. This seems to make sense considering the Peruvians had more gold than anybody else on the planet, and the gold that they had was of much better quality. Also, the gold working technology that their jewelers used to craft the metal was unsurpassed by jewelers anywhere else in the world. The best jewelry makers, best gold, most pure. They used the same kind of lost wax casting process, okay, that was known in the old world. And they used fine filigree trim. They used electric gold plating with copper wires and jars of acid. They made crowns with gold disc dangles. And they made gold copper alloys that were identical to the alloys produced by old world craftsmen. The Spaniards also found the empty mine shafts that the Phoenicians had left chiseled into the depths of the Andes Mountains. The Inca natives claimed no knowledge of these tunnels, nor were they familiar with the kinds of flammable chemicals that Phoenician miners had used to literally melt the rocks. Elsewhere in the region, archaeologists and explorers found Phoenician inscriptions, as well as ceramic portraits of the ancient mariners. Clearly, there were Semitic-looking people in ancient Peru. Spanish priests were among the first to suspect that Jesus or the apostles had been to the shores of the New World. The evidence of a Christian presence in the new land was unmistakable. Everywhere that they traveled, the Jesus missionaries found the Christian beliefs, symbols, and practices had been integrated into the native religions. For example, the Aztecs celebrated a kind of communion with the blood of sacrificial victims sprinkled over consecrated bread. There were also legends about an Irish monk named Brendan. Okay, here we go with the Irish again. We know who that is, our people, who had sailed to islands in the West where he had encountered Catholic churches and priests using the Latin Bible. Okay, so we'll stop right there. Whole lot of information hidden. Why? Because they want to make sure that everybody believes that they were the bringers of civilization and that there was no one that did it before them. So now at the end, when their whole society is still falling apart, people will still think that they have to continue to cleave to the robes of the priests and the pastors, and not thinking that they have other options. And the only people can have the other options, the ones the Most High calls at the end, and that's what's happening right now. Now, this I'm just going to share a little something with you guys from here. I'm not going to read it. It's going to leave it for you guys to check it out on your own, because it seems like there's something going on between trade or something between China and Peru. Okay, right here in this huge paragraph. You can check it out yourselves right there. I'm not sure exactly how it works out, but it seems like it doesn't necessarily have to be China. It could have been the people, the Phoenicians that were coming back and forth, and they're trying to figure out, how they got there. But I just wanted to share that with you. Okay. So, like I said, this is what's going on right now. The Most High is showing you that there was a people that was blessed before the Anglo-Saxons. They say they were the only ones. That's why they're the Israelites. But the real Israelites were there before them. And now the Most High is raising up his people and giving them knowledge and understanding in order for them to be able to tell the truth about who was there before the Anglo-Saxons got there. Who were the ones that made the covenant with the Most High? Who was, Abraham's seed that made the covenant? Who had that covenant with him? It was our people. It was not the people who are there now. Not the Johnny-come-latelys who've just taken over our area for a little bit. But now that time is over. The curses are on you, and the Most High is now raising up his people. All praise is to the Most High, Yahweh. Acknowledgement to the earthly mother. Who is wisdom? Who is Holy Spirit? Acknowledge Yahweh Shai. Shalom.